Welcome, everyone. My guest today is Nate Smoyer, the Director of Real Estate Program Growth at HousingWire, to talk about marketing, real estate, conspiracy theories, and more. I want to thank our sponsor, Optimal Blue, for making this episode possible. Nate, welcome to the podcast.
Excited to be here.
I am so excited to have you here. Of course, that intro doesn't do you enough justice. Aside from being the Director of Real Estate Program Growth at HW Media, you do a lot. Of course, you had a very successful TechNest prop tech podcast for many seasons. You are a fractional CMO. You can do real estate. You can do marketing. You can do prop tech. Like, is there anything you can't do?
Yeah, there's a lot. I tried skateboarding a ton when I was younger, and it never clicked, which is why I gravitated towards BMX. Always wished I could skateboard. I tried playing the guitar, and I just have no finger coordination, which is probably why I was a woodwind instrument player. So, but yeah, there's a handful of things out there.
There's just a few. Okay. The other thing is that people probably don't know unless they follow you on social is you're like an extreme runner. Yes. Tell me about this. I follow you. You're my vicarious running. I would never, I don't really enjoy running, but you run like at night in scary woods for like 100 miles. Like you do crazy running.
Well, I mean, amongst my friends, I'm not extreme, but I do running. I run on mostly trails, sometimes on the road. I haven't done a 100-miler successfully yet. I attempted one earlier this year. It went absolutely horrible. It was really bad. I mean, I'll tell you how bad it was. I was 2-3 miles in taking Tylenol. I was not feeling well. I literally hadn't slept at all the night before. I was up and running at like 4 or 5 in the morning. And just, it was set up to be pretty rough. I thought I was done at like mile 30, and I actually took a short nap and then made it to just over 60. And then I had thrown the towel. It was just not going to work. But yeah, I ran 100K successfully January earlier this year, which is about 62 miles. And then I've got one scheduled in about 30 days. So I'm headed down to Arizona to do another.
Oh, yes. And lest people think of you on a track somewhere, you are, you're trekking through some pretty wild places, right? I mean, they're trails, but they might be animal trails. They might be all sorts of things.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I live in South Dakota, so I'm right here in the Black Hills. I can see the Black Hills Forest out my window. So the National Forest is right there. And yeah, there's a few trails I really do enjoy running at night. I particularly like being on trails after it snows, because that's when I can actually spot the mountain lion tracks. And so as soon as it snows, like I'm eager to get out there because I know they're active. I know relatively where they're active, and I haven't seen one yet. And I would really like to see one. I was able to catch some elk on the trail last year, and I have friends who have lived here for either their whole lives and they've been running for the last 10, 15 years, and they've never seen elk on the trail. So it's a pretty special thing when you get to see them. I'm not really worried about the coyote or fox or bobcats. Mountain lions is like I'm not concerned, but I'm sure the moment I see one staring at me alone on a trail miles from the trailhead, I might feel a little differently.
I'm concerned for you. I'm secondhand concerned. No, I just wanted to give people a little bit of background of you because you have such an interesting background. I feel like all those things come into play when we do a strategy session about like how we can do stuff. You come up with some really interesting things. You have a different perspective. So even though you have this deep professional knowledge, it also comes from a really fresh perspective. So I'm excited about talking to you in this podcast about all sorts of things. Yeah. Let's dive in first on marketing, okay? Because that's such a big deal. As you look at 2025, what do you think should be? And I know this is a super, very wide open question, but like, what do you think is changing in marketing for 2025?
Oh, that's great. I'd love to start with this. So I usually sometimes frequently describe myself as probably the most boring person I know in marketing. Because I'm very practical in when I think about things. So ultimately, I'm thinking about what is the problem that the consumer needs solving? And what is the best way in solving that? So I think I look at design and I look at copy as mechanisms for enabling customers to find the solution to solve their problem as best as possible. Now, if I can help you feel better during the process, so we think about like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like can I scratch some of those like those internal mechanisms that a person has that are, you can't really hold, you can't taste, you can't feel them, but there's just something special about it. Like because I have a Coke Zero on my desk. The first sip that you have of a soda, like what is that? You can't really hold that. And for some people, it's very different. Some might find it refreshing. Some of them, for me, at mile 40, it's life-giving to have that soda, right? I drink the full Coke, though, on race days. So when we think about some of those things in marketing, can I help you achieve that faster, better, more efficiently, lower cost? Now, how you go about that certainly has changed. The landscape has changed. When I got started in marketing, I was in high school. I started writing music reviews, and then I was like, I wonder if I could sell ads against this. I didn't even know that was a thing. It was just something I just started doing, and it was a lot simpler to get noticed. The amount of content that's produced on long form websites, every in particular social media platform. Now you have TikTok alternatives. I think it's called Lemon 8 or something like that. You've got a Twitter alternative, Blue Sky. Then you have TikTok, Instagram, Threads. You have Facebook. Don't give up on Facebook yet. It's still alive and well. And you've got Twitter. So like you can count YouTube as a social media network as well, but it's also TV. It's also a search engine. It's many things. So it's really complicated if you look at it from that perspective. But if you simplify it, what is the problem the consumer is trying to solve? How can you help best solve that problem for someone? So I start from there, and then a matter of like what channels you pick or how you do it or distribution, or should you use AI, or is it video, or is it short? It doesn't matter. It honestly doesn't matter, because it's never about you, the marketer, or you, the company, or you, the product. It's always back to the customer, the person who's buying. And, if you think about it in terms of like water, what is the path of least resistance? Can you work with that? Otherwise, you're going upstream. Now, I will say as a caveat to this, you have products that are category new or category defining, or they get into one probably that everyone's familiar with now is the ray gun, or I think that's how you say it. They're the percussion massage guns. Yeah, we're all familiar with them now. But when that first really started taking off, there was no category for consumers to go to Google and look up percussion massage gun. It just wasn't a known thing to go look for. You didn't even know to go look for it. So now we talk about that's demand generation, introducing the idea of something for you to go search and find. And that was a product that you could actually go back and look at and definitively point to. Influencer marketing built that brand and the category, created a whole category of different things like that. And now the way to do that has totally even changed. So they used to go out to the influencers and say, influencer, I'll give you this thing. It costs $600 typically. Just post a few videos of you using it, right? That's been turned on its head, because on TikTok, if you put it into the TikTok shop, I can go on TikTok and I can leave a review of, hey, I just got this ray gun off the TikTok shop. Let me show you what it does for me and why I feel so much better right now. And I can show you it. And now I'm an influencer. Everyone. So instead of like 10 influencers who have 100,000 followers, you can have 100,000 influencers who have 100 followers. Far greater reach, far more genuine. So what's changed? Some of the methods of distribution, some of the types of content, some of the expectations of what media should look like and how brands should approach consumers. But I think the more it changes, honestly, the more it stays the same. Like it just comes back to, what is the problem that the consumer is trying to solve for? And can you do that for them in the most efficient or costly or least costly, or in a way that makes them feel the best?
I love that. I also think that the point about, there are so many outlets now, if you want to say that, right? There's so many media that you can use. It also means that there's room for people's authentic selves, Because I think so much in the past, the overproduce, what we would now think of as overproduced, but like it took like a village. You had to have this production team, or you had to do this. And now, of course, some of the most effective content, like you said, is just like, I'm a person talking to a person.
Yeah. It's just a conversation. I mean, my favorite pitch right now, and maybe because I pay attention to it, is this is on the TikTok. It goes, I feel bad for everyone who just bought that that viral foot massager, because it's now 30% off. Right? It's like, whoa, wait, why? And then it's like, it's now 30% off. Like, oh my gosh, I've been thinking about buying that, and now I know it's on sale, and I really believe it, because you're not a company. You're just, and it'd just be like, John loves foot massage at 125 or whatever. I don't know. It's like weird usernames, and I'm like, you're just a person. Of course, I'm going to believe this much more than I will if it's coming from, QVC or whatever, because I know they're trying to sell me something. I mean, that honestly gets down to like basic psychology, right? We have, I think, and someone can look this up and correct us, right? But I think you get like, it's a blip of a second or two, right? Where literally, and I think it's in like the frontal portion of your brain determines, is this message helpful or harmful? And we determine sales messages, or like a barrage of marketing and advertising, oftentimes as harmful or as potentially harmful. And so this is why you'll actually see a person step back when they're offered the free trial at the mall from the center kiosk, those things where we used to go to the building that had all the stores, right? People push away. Your brain actually does that. It's like, hey, this may be something you don't want. And if you lower those defenses, now you have the consumer's attention, and they'll listen to what you have.
I used to be one of the people marketing in a mall. I was selling pools. I was selling above ground pools in a mall. So it's Sarah, a hard sell.
This is not a competition, but I have you beat.
Oh, tell me.
I was a brand ambassador for only 2 days, because it was a gig. It wasn't a job, for one of the world's most famous pop stars, Justin Bieber.
No way.
In a Macy's, handing out perfume samples.
What does Justin Bieber smell like?
I don't know. The fragrance is called Believe, and I still have all the marketing collaterals for it. But it was pretty hard up for money at the time.
Listen, we do what we have to do, I love that. Talking about a person talking to a person, authenticity is really important. And to your point, like we can sniff it out. Maybe we're smelling Justin Bieber, but we can sniff it out so quick. Like, is this somebody, we're making that decision without even knowing we're making the decision, really, of like, is this a trustworthy person or not? So I think that no matter what medium or what, tack people take, they need to think about like, is this really real to me? Is this really real to the product? Is this really real to the company? And if it's not, it's probably, you're really shooting yourself in the foot, because it's going to come off whether you know it or not.
Totally. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And this applies, obviously in housing and everything, but beyond that, we all feel that. If you don't feel someone's genuine, even if they're smiling and saying nice things to you, it doesn't feel good.
It's actually worse, right? You're like,
yes.
What are they doing? Let's talk about real estate, okay? Real estate in 2025. This is the thing. You and I can talk about so many things, because you've done so many things. So real estate, you have been in real estate as a professional. You've sold and bought houses. You've been an investor. You've written about real estate. You've done, so, when you look at 2025, are you optimistic about real estate as a profession? Are you worried about your friends in real estate and yourself as the parts of you that are still in real estate?
Yeah. So there's a handful of things here. One, I have a commercial property due for refinance end of 2025. I am not excited about what this means. This is, it's going to change my cash flow projections quite a bit. And it quite frankly, it's putting me on the fence of, should I sell? And I generally, I ascribe to the team never sell. I want to hold and hold forever, and we'll sell one day and pretend I really made amazing decisions in life. So I have that perspective. And that's it's like an industrial type commercial property. And I'm also a partner in some cabins. So I'm in the vacation rental space. Thankfully, I'm a passive partner in that business. And, we hit some roadblocks this year. We wanted to refinance and restructure the financial support for the business, cash out a few of the investors. And quite frankly, we couldn't do it. The banks just didn't want to see things the way we saw things. We couldn't get the right appraisals in. And so we have it on the market. We're trying to sell it. We've got a few promising leads, but that's been a slog. And again, mortgage rates are not giving me great picture. So here's two instances. Like one, I'm thinking about selling a property, but I'm not even sure that the financing environment supports it. So I may have to keep it. And then the other one, I have literally it's 5 properties. And we want to sell them, or we want to hold them, but we can't. We feel forced to sell them, but again, because of the finance environment, like we're actually having a tough time making sense of the sale. Like even the sale doesn't make sense. So, I have some concerns about any commercial or business loan, financed properties. Like I think everyone's going to be facing this to some degree, more or less. With regards to general residential, I think you keep your sweater on all summer. It's going to be chilly. I don't see any reason why you should expect some sort of like deluge of price cuts and inventory to flood the market. I've actually, prior to joining HW, like I've been a fan of Logan's only because I'm like, I know he's not just feeding me what's the doomer view on YouTube that gets clicks, and even in my days as a real estate agent, I remember people around me like, oh, this is just like 2008. It's right around the corner. The correction is coming. Have you read have you read that from Gary Keller? And I'm like, okay, all right, hold on. I mean, maybe, I don't know. Like, how do you know? Maybe it could just fall apart. Why would it fall apart? And fundamentally, I don't see that happening. I actually wrote down 3 things that I don't think are going to happen this year. 3 of them related to the real estate industry. But yeah, I think it's going to be cold. I think transaction volume is going to be cold. I still see properties selling though. They're selling around me and homes in my neighborhood and at prices. I'm like, okay, that's good. I like to see that. And, I like to see the prices go up and stay healthy. But I think also depending on where you're at, and I think Mike, did some reporting on that, like showing like prices are not equal across the country as far as price trends. And so, it's still going to be very much a local game, but I say cold.
No, I appreciate that. And I appreciate the honesty about what's happening in your own business, because I do think that's so helpful for people to know, like, they're not alone. This is what you're seeing in your neck of the woods and in your particular niches. Because I'm sure you are not
the other
alone.
thing is, and I know this gets talked about a little bit, but the insurance market is in such flux. I'm going to give you a really practical, I don't know, tangible. Tangible is the right word. A real tangible example. So I used an online broker when we bought here in South Dakota. And we've had the same insurance company for the last 2 or 3 years. They sent a letter this year saying, hey, your broker no longer sells our products. You're going to have to find a new policy. No problem. The broker then, about a week later, I get an automatic email. Hey, we shopped your policy. We got you a new deal. It went from $1,800 to $9,500. That was their best quote. And then I went online. I'm like, okay, well, I got to go find another quote. The best quote I could find online was $3,600. I couldn't. Now, eventually I found a State Farm agent using the telephone. And I got a comparable rate that actually I just lowered my home insurance by bundling my car and everything else. Right. So in other words, like all this innovation, all this stuff, and what it meant to the end consumer on a cost perspective, horrible. It was really bad. Like these online brokers didn't even have checks and balances in their systems to like flag something like this is a horrendous quote, or they literally don't want my business in my area or the risk enough to where they're like, make us give you the policy. Like If you really want us to insure your property, make us, because here's the make us insurance price. So, I mean, it's a real concern. And I talked with some friends here and other people who also had insurance companies either pulling out of the area. This is going to make or break for some consumers. You can't have your insurance costs, double after you purchased. Florida is its own little microcosm. It's a little bit of a separate issue, and it has a lot to do with the legislations and litigation volume in that state, aside from the actual, national or natural disasters. But I think that insurance increasingly is going to be intertwined with financing and intertwined with deals breaking, is my hunch.
I think that's so smart and totally true in a way that was not true before, right? Because before it was like, okay, here's your insurance. We can get a range, right? What, like you said, what the wild card is now is that if you're looking to buy a home, a homeowner, yes, but much less an investor. Like if you've got 5 of those things and they're all resetting to, double or triple or whatever your thing is, that's just, that's rough.
Yeah. I won't touch property taxes because that'll make me get political really fast.
Well, I can tell you, I live in a state without without state income tax, but boy,
Same.
on our property taxes, that's where we get hit. So we're some of the highest in the country in the county that I live in. So
yeah, I think South Dakota gets away without. We don't have any state income tax. We have a very high amount of revenue coming in from tourism, but we also have a lot of government contracts due to military.
Yes.
So it's a significant subsidy of revenue to the state, so that we don't have the state income tax.
My dad was in the Army. He was in missile defense. And so, but we never got stationed in South Dakota, surprisingly, because obviously you guys have quite a few things out there that, you can blow up and everyone's okay with that. So we ended up being stationed around desert areas and swampy areas where you can blow things up and nobody cares. So
yeah, out in Nevada, you can find genuine, literal nothing land.
Yes. Yes, I've lived close to some of that general nothing land in my life. So very interesting.
Have you driven the loneliest highway out there?
You know what? So I drove from San Diego to Colorado and got rerouted by fires and ended up in a place in Utah that I was like, I didn't even know where I was. Part of that was through Nevada, but I think the answer is I'm not sure. I do a lot of driving. I've driven all over the country in my life, and I'm not sure.
It's cool. Yeah, you can take it to the Great Basin National Park.
Oh wow!
Which is basically a giant mountain, and you can drive up the mountain and get mostly to the top, and then hike to the peak. But they have some of the oldest trees in the country. But they're not redwood size. They're actually much smaller.
Interesting.
They look like really like twisted and shriveled trees. But if I'm not mistaken, I think like over 1,000 years old.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Okay, now that has to be put on my list. And maybe if I'm driving, I'm like, oh yeah, I've seen this before.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That sounds amazing. Okay, well, let's hope that the landscape here. Watch me do this. Okay, the landscape for real estate is much better than that loneliest highway for 2025. You like that?
That's good.
I don't think it really landed, but so I think it can be a challenging thing. I would love to know what those 3 things you wrote down were. You can't just throw that out there and not tell us.
I know, right? I was teasing it out. Okay. So you probably recall at some point there was all this hub about short-term and vacation rental industry. It blew up because of the pandemic. No one's going to sustain those rental rates. The ADR, average daily rentals, are going to go down. People are overstretched, and we're going to see this deluge of these properties. Investors are going to get tired of it, and they're just going to sell off.
But the Airbnb crash, right?
Yeah. It's not going to happen. So that's my prediction for 2025. That's not going to happen.
Okay.
In fact, ADRs are up. So travel is good. People still like their stuff. What's happening is there's a bifurcation between professionally managed and the bottom. The bottom is always going to fall away. The standards have come up. The expectations of consumers have come up. I see nothing but good stuff for that industry continuing forward. In fact, even just anecdotally, personally, our our business for the month of December was up 10% year over year.
Wow.
And nothing changed. So pretty happy about that. I also think boomers are not going to suddenly sell off all their homes. I think now I don't have charts to pull all this. I know we're used to like Logan throwing charts at us left and right. I don't have charts on this one, but I don't see it happening. I don't see that there's a good reason for boomers to do this mass exodus that we were promised years ago. So don't expect that in 2025. And the last one that's truly real estate related is, I think, the doomers that right around the corner is going to be a crash, and here's why, right? And they'll take one stat, extrapolate it, and then they try and say that it's going to lead to this chain reaction of things. I think that their channels will persist and grow both on YouTube and particularly TikTok.
Ugh. I mean, I agree with you. I think it's a terrible trend, but I agree with you.
Fear sells. Fear is a really powerful motivator. It's like one of the foundational emotions. I don't have I wish I had the book next to me. I have a book where I've written down some of these like foundational motivating fears, but fear or emotions. But fear is one of them. And I think the way that some of those channels are set up, I think they'll only continue to persist. I have a bonus prediction too.
Oh, good.
This isn't real estate related.
All right. Okay. Let's hear it.
TV will not get any simpler.
Okay. What do you mean by TV? The production of TV,
television.
Watching TV?
You go to turn on television, and look, I'm not that old. I don't think I'm that old. I've got enough gray hair where you might have to question how old I actually am. But you turn on television, and then what? You got to pick an app, or there's a channel, or you have to go to one app to watch a channel.
It's true.
But you don't get that channel because you didn't subscribe to that service separately. It's not going to get any cheap. It's not going to get any simpler.
This is such a pain point for me. I cannot tell you. And I don't know if that's because I'm old enough to remember when there was 3 channels and you just like turned the dial right to 3 different channels. But it is just, I hate it because I have all these things. I have a bunch of streaming services. I have the Roku. I have the cable because I like local. I have all this stuff.
Right. You have the streaming, like yes. You have the Roku, but the Roku doesn't give you all of the different apps that it comes baked into the television. And then even better, some TVs can't play certain apps.
Right.
I didn't even know that was possible. Like we have an LG TV that we bought, like got it last maybe 2 years ago, like after like Christmas. It was the first time I've ever bought a television. I never in my life have ever purchased a television. Yeah. So, and apparently like one of the apps, I don't know if it's like Discovery or whatever, like it doesn't play on there anymore.
That is crazy. Like they blocked it from a TV. That doesn't even.
I don't know.
Listen, that is up there with like, I bought this house in March, and my, the faucet for my kitchen sink is a smart faucet. And so I came back from a trip and it wasn't working because apparently it needed batteries. And I was like, or I'll be right in the middle of doing a bunch of dishes and it'll just turn off and it won't turn back on because apparently I've passed some threshold. And I'm like, can I go back to the dumb everything? I just need dumb. I don't want a smart faucet or,
Is that the one you just wave your hand in front of and the water turns on and off?
Allegedly, yes. That is supposed to be what happens. Oftentimes.
My mother has that. And I get when I go to her house, I have no clue how to use the dang thing.
It's super annoying. So anyway, that's my curmudgeonly, like, come on. Get off my lawn. Give me my faucet that's not smart and my TV.
Well, let's bring it back to housing. I need to know. Do you think it's okay to have a TV above a fireplace?
I had a TV in my last house. Had a TV above the fireplace that was one of those looked like a picture. Those frame.
Okay,
frames.
That's fine. But do you think it should be the television for watching?
No, it's too high.
It's okay to have that above a fireplace.
It's too high.
I agree. Okay, good.
There you go.
All those of you who have a TV above the fireplace, and especially for any real estate agents listening to this that stage a house leaving the TV above the fireplace, how dare you?
How dare
Shame
you?
on you.
I hope you repent in this new year. Absolutely. Well, I love that you shared your predictions with us. I agree with those predictions, actually. And we've done so many. We have seen a lot of charts on that. We've done stories on the silver tsunami and why that's not going to happen, the Airbnb bust, why that didn't happen. And so I think that those are really good things. And the doomers are just, we see it everywhere. And, the reason why is because they get paid a ton of money because, to your point, fear sells.
It's viral. It sells. And they don't even have to use real stats.
No, they just make it up.
Wall Street owns 30% of homes, and they're coming to buy, and they'll own everything by 2030. Like, guys, you literally don't know how stats work. There's a book called The Power of Mathematical. It's called How Not to Be Wrong: The Power of Mathematical Thinking. And I'm not a mathematician. I'm not an expert. I literally struggle to get through algebra, right? But one of the things it talks about is like the rate of growth of obesity. And if you were to actually chart that out, it would show you that 100% of the population by like 2040 or something like that is going to be obese. But that's literally not how things work. So you can't take one small data point and then extrapolate it and be like, oh no, by 2035 we're going to all. That's not how that works. You have rates of, sometimes you have like a point of something to where it doesn't go beyond that because of other external factors or other reasons. It's just not how that works. So yeah, but I'll tell you what, I'll give it to the doomers on the TikTok and the YouTube. Some of them are really good at storytelling, really good at putting together the idea of something and framing it. And I sent one to a friend the other day. It's actually a really interesting story. Supposedly uncovering a money laundering scheme in California, right? Gavin Newsom says he can't find a whole bunch of money. Or I don't know what the headlines were. I don't follow this very closely. I watched one TikTok on this, so that shows you how much of an expert I am. And then it like followed this train of like public housing projects, and the public housing projects all having one company popping up around these projects, and how that one company had one office that was owned by a shell company connected back to that one company that supposedly has a bank account registered in the Caymans. So public housing projects all connected to a real estate investment firm that is based in the Caymans. And I'm like, okay, but is it really that obvious? Is it really like that easy, cut and dry? Or is this just like phenomenal storytelling of a whole bunch of triangulation that didn't give me the full amount of info, but it was enough to help you draw a conclusion of to the point of like, well, what else could it be? It must be true. What else could it be?
Well, and anytime you can throw in something like, oh, it's those terrible landlords, or oh, it's the greedy developers, or it's Wall Street buying all the homes, right? Like if you're tapping into something that's already out there, people are like, oh yeah, I want to believe that, or I do believe that at some point or something. That's what they're doing. And my favorite tactic is on social when they're like, this is how it starts. They don't actually, and it's very vague, and you're like, this is how it starts. What happened? What would I not know? Like, what's happening? Or they're like, this, they'll have a stat and they're like, this is the same thing we saw in 2006 or 2007.
Oh yeah, happened. That'll motivate
It's
people.
like, okay, well, there's a lot of things that happened in 2007 that are going to happen today. That's not meaning that.
I as a real estate agent, this was 2017. I was not a particularly good agent, mostly because I have a knack for finding terrible deals. Terrible as in like they're not easy, they're complicated. If I could just go find a 3-2 and sell it to someone who's pre-approved, that would be great. But it's just not who I am. But I got my start cold calling. I didn't have any audience to go after. All my friends were younger, not ready to buy yet. So I was like, I'm cold calling. And I would start with, I'm with the team I was with, and we just sold a home down the street from your house. We sold it for X% over asking. Have you considered selling, given that the market is so hot? Something like that. They would say no. And I'd say, no worries. I'm just curious, do you know of any of your neighbors who have been talking or considering about selling? And they would say no. And then I would say, I'll let you go. But before I hang up, every week I send out a newsletter. It lets people know about the prices of homes in the area and potential changes coming to the neighborhood. And that last bit, potential changes coming to the neighborhood, I know without a shadow of a doubt, because I added this script in myself. No one told me to do this. And then I would say, what's the best email for me to send that to? So every morning from 9 to 12, time blocked, I would call 200 people. I would make, somewhere between like contact. I forget the contact rate. Something like 20. I would talk to 20 people to get one appointment.
Wow.
Right? I could come out with 10 to 15 emails.
Huge.
Every single day.
Huge to have that every single day.
Because they heard the changes to the neighborhood, and it was enough of like, whoa, what does that mean? Where's that? Well, yeah, I kind of want to know about that. Sure. You can send it. And it just added them to the list. I mean, within weeks, I had hundreds of people on my email list from cold
Well,
calls.
especially changes to the neighborhood, they might be like, whatever is in their back of their mind is what they're going to think.
I don't know what that is.
It could be different for every person. Someone's like, they're going to put up a strip mall right here, and I'm not going to like that. They're going to build apartments. They're going to, So yeah, that's genius.
If you're not on the newsletter, you're not going to find out.
Nate, you honed your skills with that Bieber fragrance, and then you applied it for good for the real estate.
So if you want to know about the changes coming to the housing market, you've got to head over to HousingWire.com. You can subscribe to the real estate newsletters there.
I love it.
Maybe that's how we start plugging it.
That is how we start doing it. Nate, I can't believe we're already out of time. But thank you so much for jumping on. Thank you for talking about what you're seeing. And we'll do this again soon.
Yeah, excited. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Nate. Thanks for listening to Housing Wire Daily. If you haven't already, we'd love for you to take a minute to rate the show and leave a comment. And make sure to tune in tomorrow for more news and insight.